Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our weekly series of Shirim on the Ramchal's Adir BaMarom, commentary on Rashbi's Idra, and we're moving further into the preparatory setup behaviors that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is engaged in to ensure that the rectifications take place the way that they need to. And something that has become abundantly clear from this introductory process is the hyper significance of the placement and the arrangement and the organization of things. There is nothing by chance in the world of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai v'Chavrayev, and there's really nothing by chance in the world of all of the tzaddikim and Amich Kulam tzaddikim, because each and every yid has a direct relationship with the Shechina HaKodesh, has a direct relationship with the Hashgacha Pratis that HaKodesh Baruch Hu is revealing in our lives at every moment, which means to say that there's a specificity to the way that things unfold, and each and every person has the right to behold the specifics in which their life is unfolding and the setup behaviors and the orientation that they create for themselves as they prepare to build their own Idra. We're seeing this reflected in the light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that each and every intimation of positioning or language or orientation or bodily movement, all of them are seen as hyper significant. And this is the beauty of the Zohar HaKadosh, and it would be inaccessible to us if it were not for the Tzadiki Yechidi Hadoros, the Tzaddik Yisod Olam, Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato, who dug down deep into the depths of the well of the Idirabah to reveal the Shakya de Ilana, the flow of vitality that is actively pulsating through the words themselves. We're not talking about a dead text that is just an expression of a previous stream of vitalism that is now gone, but Adarabah, the text is the gateway into revealing the ever-present nature of the Nahar HaYotze Mi'eden that is perpetually being revealed, to the degree that every ounce of Torah is like this, that when I'm reading the words of the Torah and I'm reading them properly and I'm reading them with intentionality and I'm reading them with a kavana of lishma, to be mamtik the dinim from this world, to elevate concealment back up to clarification, to draw down strength from the tzaddikim through whom HaKadosh Baruch Hu has revealed his Torah, then Memela, when I utter the words, there's an awakening of that tzaddik, that light, and Memela, it has a relationship with me as the reader that brings out a certain spiritual insight that would not be available to a person had they not entered into the text itself. So now we're going to read the words of the Zohar HaKadosh, and then we'll look at Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's understanding and the Ramchal's commentary. Rabbi Eliezer brei oisive kaime Rabbi Abba misitra achra va'amar anan klala dekula. So everybody was in the Idra, everybody was ready, everybody had their weapons, everybody knew the hyper significance of doing things properly and not getting caught up in the wrong way and not taking the matters too seriously and not taking them less seriously than they need to be taught, but rather understanding the very fine place in which the concepts prevent themselves from falling into the idolatrous impulse of making an idol, but also destroying the idols and becoming fundamentally aware of the fact that whatever we know, we don't know anything, or we're just drawing forward from Chachma Stima'a, and that ultimately all iteration taking shape in the lower levels is a refraction and a further revelation of that which is taking place on the highest levels. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is going to set up that he's going to be sitting in the middle. Rabbi Lazar, his son, is going to be sitting on one side, and Rabbi Abba is going to be sitting on the other side. And Rabbi Shimon said, once the three of them were together, plus Klilim plus, so he says that we are the general principle, me and the two on the side of me, much like Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron and Hur, who are on the side of him. It's the three-pronged unity that takes shape between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Lazar and Rav Abba. Both of those elements, they all reveal the threefold nature of the unity. V'amar anan klala dekula. We are the general principle of it all. Ad hashta etaknu kayamin. Up until this point, everything that has been rectified is prepared, and it's standing in its rectification. Ashtiku. There was silence. Shame kala. There was a voice that was heard. V'arkuvasan dalada nakshan. And the garments were rubbing against one another, and it was creating a sound. My kala, what was the sound? Kala de knufaya iloya de miskanfe. It's the sound of the transcendent wings that are flapping. Let's go into the words of the Ramchal. So that's the Hakdama. We're drawing down Ruach HaKodesh now. Zakta Helig Ramchal. He called Rabbi Eliezer, his son, and he had him sit next to him. Ramchal says these setups, these placements of the individual chavraya were all major rectifications in the preparation for the revelation of the Idra. Ki inyane hashras hashchina v'gilui ruach HaKodesh heim bedrachim rabim. When it comes to drawing down the Shekhinah in our lives, when it comes to recognizing that we are the vessel that reveals the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when it comes to understanding that the only way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinitude can be drawn down from the place of Chachmas Tima'ah down into the realm of Bina, down into the realm of Zeranpin, down into the realm of Malchus, and from there back upwards again, that additional adornment that comes about in reality, the Hashras HaShekhinah and the Gilui of Ruach HaKodesh, that can only take place by Bnei Yisrael, that takes place in many, many different ways. There is no singular way in which Ruach HaKodesh takes place. V'kvar matzanu l'razal shepirshu, l'David mizmor, or l'mizmor l'David, l'fi derech hashras Ruach HaKodesh alav. So the Gemara already describes in Psachim Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph that there are multiple ways in which a person sparks Ruach HaKodesh, in which a person draws down Hashras HaShechina, which is Ruach HaKodesh. It's dependent upon Simcha, it's dependent on certain prerequisites that have to be found within the individual. Does that mean that it's always going to appear in one way and there's no other way? No, the Gemara has already told us that even when it came to David HaMelech, there are two stages of David HaMelech's encounter with drawing down Ruach HaKodesh. There's the David Mizmor, or there's Mizmor the David. There's times where David is the one who awakens from below the desire to draw down light from above. That's the David Mizmor, that David is the one who awakens the singing, and now the singing comes down. Or there's going to be times of Mizmor the David where the singing comes down to David without any preparation whatsoever. So sometimes there are set-up behaviors where we yearn and we prepare, and sometimes it just happens by way of surprise, by way of a dream, and suddenly something takes shape. It's all in accordance to the derech of a person trying to draw down Ruach HaKodesh. V'zeh, ki lepa'amim yoytze milamala or, hu yagia el ha'adam, v'yasig kinimseb or hahu. Meaning to say there's times where the light emerges from above, there's a particular spiritual insight that is awoken and it descends down to be revealed. And unbeknownst to the individual, there was no effort that was done, but that insight comes down to the individual, and the individual grasps the relative orientation of that particular light. That's the situation of Mizmor David, where it just comes down without preparation. Oh, Yachin ha'adam atzmo v'ya'asok b'Torah v'ya'ir hadvarim ha'elyonim. Or another way is that a person themselves prepares themselves from below by engaging in Torah and awakening the words from below up above, and by way of that effort, we become the receptacle to draw down the light. V'gam yesh she'oros nosafim ha'oros. And in addition, sometimes I might have the intention of drawing down a particular light, of experiencing a particular hasaga, of experiencing a certain element of kedusha or tahara or connectivity to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and suddenly, instead of finding the insight that I was looking for, there's many lights that are going to come down, lights upon lights, and these lights are going to engage with one another, and they're going to spark one another. The drachim rabim ma'od, the general principle is that there are many, many drachim, there are many ways towards which a person enters into the kedusha. Avada, they're all unified. It's the 12 drachim that are all unified in that 13th gate, which is going to be the singularity at the heart of all drachim. But nevertheless, says the Ramchal, one of the ways that we have to understand works very well is by learning Torah down here below, by awakening ourselves to the words and the Ruach HaKodesh and the Rishimu and the trace of infinitude that was expressed within the neshama of that mechaber remains within the text itself, to the degree that by reading the text there's an awakening of the inherent neshama of the mechaber in that text, and then there's a hiskashrus da b'da, and at that point the words are no longer just bearing an impact on a psychological level, they're not just nice ideas, but rather they are now engraving themselves on an ontological level, and they're having a deep shift and impact on the individual themselves. That is one of the ways that we awaken the hashpa'ah from above, when we sit and we learn Torah lishma, when we believe that in each and every os that we encounter in the Torah, there are oilamos, neshamos, ve'elokus, there are worlds, there are souls, and there is infinitude, and our job is to be the souls that unify the light of the olamos, this worldliness, with elokus, godliness, and to be the bridge that connects these two polar opposites. Then we can understand why reading the words of Torah is enough to awaken the biggest hashpa'ah lamata. So now let's talk about exactly the setup that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was engaged in over here. So the first thing we see is that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai davened. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was mispalel to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's specifically through the tefillah that we saw earlier, that Eis Lasos La Hashem, Amay Eis Lasos La Hashem, and we're going to see Rabbi Shimon continues with tefillos that we're going to see afterwards. He starts with the tefillah to awaken the desire and to draw down that which he would like to engage in the Idra itself. Va'az yimshach or zeh lamata alav. And then, after davening, Rabbi Shimon drew down the light that he had davened for down to him. V'hu koach shabo yimasru lo kol ha'me'oros ha'ela lihitakin begiloi sodeisehem. And as a result of the tefillah and the drawing down of those hasagos and those ma'oros that were awoken through the tefillah, they come down in a revealed way, and the secrets are revealed in front of Rabbi Shimon. Now we see something remarkable here, that the first thing is tefillah, and then the Torah comes afterwards. We know from Rabbi Nachman there's a cloud that Mayan Mebeis Hashem, that in truth we generally assume that Torah comes from a higher place than Tefillah, that the Chochmah comes from a higher place than Malchus itself. And ultimately, when it comes to a lower perspective of things, it does seem that the Torah is above Tefillah, to the degree that we have to draw the Torah down into Tefillah. We have to daven for Torah. We have to be able to daven for Torah, and that the highest level of davening is to daven for Hasagas HaTorah. But then there's another insight that Rabbi Nachman reveals, which is that when a person comes to the fullest culmination of Torah, the next step is to transform it into a tefillah. Why are we transforming Torah into tefillah? Other than the fundamental need to take the intellectual grasp that a person might feel that they have, and to ensure that it can break free away from the cold intellect and warm the heart in a way that it can have an impact on the Jewish neshama in a practical way. So that's obvious. That's why we have to transform Torah into tefillah. But based on what the Ramchal is pointing out, and Rabbi Nachman also has a very clear point on this, in truth, the shorish of the Torah is tefillah. That the shorish of Torah comes from the Beis Hashem, comes from Beis HaMikdash, comes from Mibein Shnei HaKruvim, comes from Kodesh HaKadoshim, where yes, the Aron HaKodesh was there, but ultimately it was the secret of the Kruvim and Mibein Shnei HaKruvim, and it was the tefillah that came, that Ruach HaKodesh, that L'cha Amar Libi. And so we see that the Torah is drawn down from the tefillah. First, there's the tefillah for the Torah. Then when we daven, we draw down the Torah. And then the goal is to transform the Torah back into a tefillah so that it can go back into the place that it came from. So we see here that Ramchal is pointing out the very same setup, that first and foremost Rabbi Shimon davened, and then only through the davening and the orientation of the ratzon and the awakening of the desire to attach himself to particular forms and lights, then he was able to draw down those lights so that they can come into congealment by way of secrets. V'chein haya, and this is how it was, ki nimshach lo hakoach, that by way of davening, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai drew down the strength for himself. V'higia elav ma'ashigia, and it came to him as a result of his davening. Whatever came to him. How? By way of his davening. V'yared v'nifras lefanav besod haparsa shezachar lekaman. And the way that it was all revealed in front of Rabbi Shimon is in the form of the parsa. The parsa is that partition, that separation, that congealment of that which is so lofty that it cannot be conveyed until the point that it comes down into graspability. That is the parsa. That is the secret of the separation, the tzimtzum that Rabbi Shimon was coming to be megala. As the Zohar HaKodesh is going to explain, and we're going to see later on in Daf Kuf Lamed Daled Amud Beis, Amar Rabbi Shimon lechavraya, Rabbi Shimon said to his chavraya, Kadit paris prisada v'chulei, that ultimately one of the main general frames that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was drawing down in the Zman of the Idra Rabbah was the parsa, the separation that binds, the distinction between Atika Kadisha and Zer Anpin, which is ultimately there to reveal the fundamental unity at the heart of both of them. This secret of the parsa, of what Rabbi Shimon was drawing down, is theoretically the in-between, that liminal point wherein the infinite and the finite meet together to create this kind of fine boundary where each can interact with the other. And once he drew down this parsa as a result of the tefillah, and as a result of that, as a result of the tefillah, he drew down what he needed to draw down, and there was revelation, and as a result of that revelation, the secrets were revealed to him. And then, like we've said over and over, the goal was not to simply draw down the lights so that they can be revealed down here below. That's not the purpose of Soda Satorah. The purpose of Soda Satorah are not to allow the individual to be filled with awareness or ideas. That's also a Maila. That's Limud HaTorah. That's Havana Satorah. That's Ma'asim Merkava. But ultimately, the Tachlis is to draw down so that it can come down below, and then once it's down here below, it goes up, back to a place that it could not have gotten to had it not descended down, as we're going to see. And this is the truth of the matter in all matters of tefillah. We draw down so that it can come down, and then we bring it back up so that it can go and rest in the crowns of the levels that it goes back up to. We've explained this already, and this is not the place that we're going to explain it at length. The Ramchal continues. So now we're going to go into a particular iteration of why it is that Rabbi Shimon is setting himself up in this kind of three-pronged position where it's him, Rabbi Elazar, and Rabbi Abba. And so what the Ramchal is going to say is something hafladik, which we touched upon in the beginning. Ultimately, like we just said, what we're doing is we're drawing down from above so that it can come down below. And that when it comes down below, it has the ability of doing what it needs to do. But in truth, it's not just drawing down from above to below. What we do is we gather all of the strength from within the entirety of the self, from above, from the highest levels down to the lowest levels. And then once there's a coalescence of all of the strength from above to below, it doesn't express itself yet. What happens rather is that it all congeals into a particular point of spiritual potency, and then it goes all the way back up to a source from whence it came, but it now enters into a place that it did not have access to before, which is Chachma, Bina, and Das. So what happens is that there's the Hiskalus of the Chesed, the Gevura, the Tiferes, the Netzach, Hod, and the Yesod. Everything is ready to be revealed, and then it goes all the way back up to draw from Chachma, Bina, and Das. Chachma, Bina, and Das are the first iterations of what will eventually reveal itself as Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. We know that the right line is Chachma, Chesed, and Netzach. The left line is Bina, Netzach, the Bina, Hod, and Bina, Gevura, and Hod. And the middle pillar is going to be Keser, Das, Tiferes, and Yesod. So we see that Chabad, Chachma, Bina, and Das, the three Moichin, are going to reveal themselves down below in the Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. But what happens is that first we draw the lights from Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes. We gather all of the lights from whatever is accessible within our experience of self. Then we draw it down into that point of expression, which is Netzach, Hod, Yesod, which is the three-pronged expression of expression outwards as is seen in the anatomy of the masculine self. And then instead of it being revealed outwards, rather it goes all the way back up so that it can draw down from its source, which is Chachma, Bina, and Das. And then once that potency brings down the additional lights of Chachma, Bina, and Das, now it's ready to be Meskala into Malchus. Now there's something that can be revealed. And that's what we're going to see here. We have to know, everything that comes down, that is drawn down from above to below, kulam yordim b'derech zivug. So we just said that it's tefillah. And the Ramchal is not saying that tefillah is the opposite of zivug, but rather he's explaining that in truth, tefillah and zivug are the same exact thing. Everything is dependent upon the zivugim and the yichudim. A zivug implies that there's two-ness, there's a split-sidedness to things, there's a mashpia and there's a makabel, there's giving and there's receiving, there's light and there's a kli, and ultimately, as a result of the encounter and the collision between these two polar opposites, there's going to be a revelation of an impossible third that comes out from between the two of them in the secret of ish ve'isha shchina shruya b'neihem, that when there's a unity of the hashpa'ah and the Kabbalah, so there's going to be a third point that emerges from within them. But that happens in a particular way. That's called the secret of a zivug. So anytime that anything is being nimshach lamata, anytime we're drawing down something from above, especially by way of tefillah, the way that it comes down is also going to be the very same way in which the zivug takes place. And if there's going to be certain halachas about the zivug in ruchnias, where there's a unity between two sides that reveals a third point from within it, so that's going to apply here as well. So we have to understand that anytime we're drawing things down from above to below, kulam yordim b'derech zivug, they all descend downwards by way of coupling, by way of the relationship. And there's going to be a certain halacha by the relationship, which is not necessarily revealed in the secret of tefillah. And that's what we're going to have to see here. Kima sheyoytze derech hazivug hinei tzarech letzeis mikol ha'avarim hataryag v'nechlalim b'yasoid u'misham yoytzem elanukva. When it comes to any zivug, when it comes to a hiskalas hadas, when it comes to gathering together the strength of the self and its coalescence so that it is prepared to reveal something, a word, an action, an expression, that means that it's drawing upon all of the potency within the self. It's drawing from the reservoirs of potential within every single part of the self, the 248 bones, the 365 sinews, which correspond to the Taryag mitzvos, which are the shape of the body itself, as we discussed so deeply at the beginning of the Idir Rabbah, and they all gather together in the Yesod, which is the Kol Shema, prior to its revelation. And then it emerges from everything that preceded it, from Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Gvur, Tferes, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, and then it expresses itself in Malchus. Ha'emesu, but there's a different direction that we typically don't gain access to that's taking place here. Ki kol ma sheyoytze mikol ha'ivarim. You're right, that everything that's going to be revealed is drawn down from a coalescence of strength from every part of the self. Nimshach lamala el hamoichin atzmam v'nechlalim bam. Everything that has been gathered together, all of the strength of the self that has been gathered together, it is drawn from above to below, but once it hits that coalescence point and that quintessential point of expressivity, it doesn't emerge outwards, it goes all the way back up. It descends down from below, and then it goes all the way back up prior to being revealed so that it can gain the additional strength that it needs in order to be expressed properly. Prior to the coalescence of all of the dargin of Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, there was no accessibility to the Chachma, Bina, and Das. But now that everything is ready to be revealed, and everything is standing at the ready to be congealed into a particular quintessential drop of expression, so then it has the ability now to go all the way back up to Abba and Ima, to the Chachma, Bina, and Das, in order to draw a new level of insight so that it can now go down, and once it expresses itself by way of the Yesod, now there's going to be a real Hiskalis, because it's going to have the Moichin within it as well. Anything that's going to emerge from within the entirety of the self, before it descends outwards, it ascends upwards, it goes back upwards by way of intensification, and it goes all the way back up into the moichin themselves, into that space of spirituality. And then all of that coalesced energy, which has now brought itself back into that place of the mind, and it's attached itself back to the place of das, now it gets drawn down and it expresses itself finally at the ready to be revealed. And this is what the Gemara tells us in Maseches Chulim, Daf Mem He Amud Aleph, that there's a machlokas with regards to a treifa in a cow. What happens when there is a nekev on the membrane that surrounds the brain of the cow itself? And there's a machlokas amongst the Tanaim, and it turns out that there's two membranes. There's the membrane that covers the brain itself, and there's a membrane that lines the brain, and there's a machlokas, and there's a membrane that lines the skull. There's the external membrane and the internal membrane, but nevertheless, we see that there's a membrane to the brain. And Chazal say, but it's very difficult to discern what exactly the nature of this membrane is. And so Chazal say, but if you look at the anatomical expression of the masculine form of expressivity outwards by way of the Yesod and the train Beitzin, you'll also see by the Netzachot and the Yesod, you'll be able to see that same sheath, that if you want to understand the anatomy of the brain, when it comes to the animal, you can find expression in the anatomy in the reproductive organs of the male animal. So we see that there is a reflection of the upper echelons of Moichin, Chachma, Bina, and Das that express themselves down below in Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Yesod is the organ of reproduction, and Netzach and Hod are the two bayin that support the organ of reproduction. It's the three-pronged nature of expression, the three-sided nature of Chesed, Gvura, and Rachamim, which are expressed at every single level. So we see this reality that what is about to be expressed by the lower level of Netzach, Hod, and Yesod then has to go all the way back up to Chabad, into the Moichin, to drop back down, is expressed in Chazal with Kenegdo Bebeitzim Nikr, that if you want to understand something by the brain, you can understand it by understanding the lower reproductive organs. Sha'amru Razal, that's what Chazal said. V'hu, and what's the reasoning behind this? Ki kamoshi yesh gimel Moichin beroish, kach yesh Yesod v'trein bein mamish. Just as there are three mindsets, so too we're going to find that three-part expression in the reproductive organs. And that which is concealed and hidden and contained within the mind in the secret of consciousness, when it comes to any activity or any expression, it's the koyach of Yesod, which is going to be that which brings it outwards. And so we see there's going to be inequivalency in spite of the distance between the highest level and the lowest level. And that's only once we coalesce all of the levels together to go back up to the highest level, then the highest level can be revealed, the lowest level, which is the moichin being meskala in the Yesod, which is the secret of Geula. This is exactly what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is doing here when he gathers together around himself Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Abba. There always has to be a three-part nature to revelation. There's the Yesod in the middle, then there's going to be the two sides that balance and enable the light of the Yesod to be maskala properly once it's drawn down the light of the Chachma, Bina, and Das. Just as Das reveals Chachma and Bina together in unity to reveal the highest light of Keser, so too the Yesod is Megala, the Yichud of the Netzach and the Hod together to reveal the highest level of Moichin imaginable. And this is what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai did. Kishakar Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Abba. He called Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Abba in order so that they should have this setup. In the beginning, everybody came into the Idra. Besod Asara Hasfiros Vehim Klolos Apartzuf. Everything gathered together. There were the 10 spheros that combined into the Partzuf. But now, prior to the emergence of anything, we have to bring it all the way back up to the beginning of the Partzuf, which is the Chachma and the Bina and the Das of it all, in order to be Mamshech Moichin, because in Kishoy Ela B'das, and there's the need to draw from the highest level in order so that something real and quintessential and potent can be be expressed. And this is the secret of the coalescence of the Chesed, Gvur, Tfaris, the Netzach, and the Yesod, and then all the way up to the Chachma, Bina, and Das, so that the Tipa that is about to emerge, the Chita, the 22 letters of the Aleph base, which are about to emerge into Kalim, should be revealed in a real way. Amar Anan Klala Dekula. And that's why Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, even though there's 10, nevertheless, it's the three of us, the Netzach, and the Yesod of it all, that are going to be the Klala Dekula. This is where all of the revelation is going to ultimately take shape. Kikein Ratza Lichlal Hakol Bahem, because everything needed to be contained in this singular unity, Besod Ha'aliyah Hazos, because now it was time. Okay, we have all of the Evarim, everything has been gathered together from all of the Chavraya, but now we have to coalesce into the place of Netzach and Yisod, go all the way back up to Chochmah Bina and Das, to draw down the highest and most potent form of expressibility possible. Besod Aliyah Hazos. Va'az miyad mitkala tikun biyasod. And then the tikkun of goodness is going to emerge. Then the goodness and the unity of all things and all of the different drachim are going to be revealed. Besod kenegdo bebeitzim nikr, like we just saw in the name of Chazal on Daf Memhei and Chulin, which is the secret of what? Chulin is about a behema. Daf Memhei is gematria Adam, so it's the secret of showing the light of the Adam within the behema. The behema is the darga of the Netzachot and the Yesod. The Adam is the darga of Chachma Bina and Das, and to reveal the Chachma Bina and Das within the Netzachot and the Yesod is this teaching of that kenegdo bebeitzim nikar sha'amarnu the sod ze vav. And the secret of drawing this all down is Vav Aleph Vav. Vav Aleph Vav is the shlemus of that Hamshacha, Melamala Lamata, and then Melamata Lamala, so that we can draw down the highest potency. And it's a Vav that's spelled out with an Aleph, like we said before. There's many drachim to Ruach HaKodesh, but ultimately they're all going to be unified in a singular shar, which is going to be the gematria of Echad. Vav Aleph Vav is the gematria of 13, which hints to the secret unity at the heart of all things, where all differentiation is shown to be revealed in a quintessential drop of unity, V'hu Ahava. And it's also the gematria of Ahava, which we're going to see in a second is also part of what Rashbi is revealing. So it's the unity of all things. V'hu Yid Gimel Brisos Shenichrisu ala Mila. And these are the 13 covenants that were cut according to the Mila. The Bris Mila is this place of the Achdus HaKoleles, where everything is gathered at the ready to be revealed, whether by way of a word, an action, an engagement, a thought, an expression. Every point of ourselves has to be contained within that which is about to be expressed. So l'chein kivan shenetaknu b'tikun zeh, once this tikkun has taken place between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Lazar and Rav Abba, where they have the three, ad kan etiknu kaimen. Now those tikkunim are there. Yud gimel ha'ela shekulim nikraim kayamim. And now all of these Yud gimel brisin, all of this preparation on the side of everything to be revealed in a particular way, they're all there and they're steady and they're revealed. Yud gimel brisos ha'metatkin b'kesher ha'moichin ima yisod. It's the 13 principles of unity that connect the mind with the yisod. Ve'az shamukala va'arkuvtin da lida neksharin, and they heard this sound of the garments rubbing one against the other. V'seid ha'inyan, and what's the secret? What's taking place here? Now that the yichud is shalim, now that the light of the moichin is going to be drawn down into netzachod and yisod. So what happens now? Ve'az shamukala va'arkuvtin da lida nashkin. V'seid ha'inyan. The secret of the matter is as follows: Ki yesh harbe mini ha'aros ba'us v'shoros. There's many types of lights, and there's many types of awakening towards light, and the awakening towards light creates an awakening within the self, and there's many different ways of being awoken within the self. So that's the question. What is the voice that we're hearing? What is the awakening? It's the voice of those elevated wings that are flapping. The secret of the flapping of the wings is the Ruach that comes after the Aliyah, and it's the great sound and that great voice. When there's a unity in the level of the zivug, when there's a unity between opposites, and we have the ability of looking at separation and going all the way back up to the place of unity and drawing it back down into the place of separation, and the secret of the zibug and the secret of the giloy of the tipa, which is more hiskalas of elikus. So then at that point there is going to be great noise, positive noise that is awoken throughout the entirety of existence. V'sodo be'emes harta'as ha'ma'ores ha'mis'orim kulam b'tshukasam lahashpia. And what it is the awakening and the friction that is awoken within the speed in which each and every element of existence has simply a desire to be mashpia outwards, to express the light outwards. Higalena, to let that light be revealed. Anytime that there's a zivug down below, anytime that tzaddikim are osek and a yichud, the entirety of existence wants to come about and express itself as that yichud. It wants to take part part in that yichud. They want to be mashpia. V'kulam hoichim liot nechlalim b'moichin livanu sham tipa. And everybody wants to take part in the binyan of this tipa and the binyan of this moichin, because every time there's going to be a haskalis, the entirety of existence has to be involved in it, because there's no haskalis of a nitzutz that doesn't have the entirety of existence contained within it. And this is the sound of the elevated wings that are flapping. It's the unity and the awakening of all things that want to gather together and take part in this secret unity. In accordance with the Ruach that the individual who is beginning to try and have a grasp is engarbed in within the Ruach that they draw down from Gan Eden, so too in accordance to the levushim that I'm wearing, in accordance to the way that I think, in accordance to the shape of my mind, so too is going to be the content that is revealed in my mind. And when a person is mitlabesh within the moichim that come about by way of zivug, which is the hisklalis hakol, hirgish bekol harash, a person begins to feel the noise, a person begins to be part and parcel of the yichud, and a person begins to imagine that they're taking shape within this place in the secret of avodah l'tzarech gavoa. Hirgish bekol harash, shu harta'as hazivug. There's an awakening, there's a friction, there's a movement, there's the intensification of self that wants to reveal itself. L'chein mikoyach hakol hazeh, by way of the strength of this voice, are kuvtin dolad anashkin ki biyosa besod harta'a kachgoyim ubeprat ba'archovos besod netzach yisoid. There is a grinding together of the lower levels. The lower levels are touching one another. All of the concealment of this world draws forth together to reveal the light that comes out from the lowest levels of netzach and yisoid. This is how the zivug is taking place above. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is drawing down from this zivug the koyach that is necessary to engage in the process of the idra. And once we awaken ourselves to draw down this rectification that comes down by way of the balance, by way of the three-sided nature of the scale of Rabbi Shimon in the middle, of Rabbi Lazar and Rav Abba in the secret of the mitgala, and that's what we're going to explain shortly. One more paragraph to kind of orient us towards where we need to get to, because all of this is ultimately bringing us back to that secret of the derech of ahava that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is revealing. The derech of yira, what was revealed earlier by Habakkuk, the derech of yira is the secret of, okay, I can be in chachma and I can find that illumination of Chachma down in Malchus, but the descent away from Chachma into the territory of Bina and Zer Anpin and all of the complications and all of the separations and all of the gradations seems to be too big of a divide for me to be able to hold on to the light of unity that's expressed in Chachma. And therefore there's a Yira. Yira is the level of Chachma. It sees what it sees, it's Re'iyah Mamish, and it doesn't want to descend, it doesn't want to deviate. The Derech of Ahava, or Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was trying to awaken, is to draw down that light of Chachma down into the process of Bina, from the process of Bina down into the process of Zer Anpin, into the constriction, into selfhood, into the experience of the self. From there to go down into Malchus, and then Malchus has to go all the way back up, and it goes up through Bina again. It goes up through Chachma, and it goes into the inner interiority of Chachma, which is the interiority of Keser. So ultimately, the entire tikkun of Rabbi Shimon v'Chavrayev is the derech of Ahava. Ahava is the willingness to take leave of the absolute and fundamental revelation of unity, so that we can descend down into apparent concealment, and within apparent concealment to reveal how even within the distance there's a closeness. This is the secret of Ahava, the Achdus, the Yerida into the Chasadim. This is where the Baal HaSulam takes so much from. We know that it took so much from the Adir BaMarom, that ultimately the Tachlis is to go from Chachma, to go from that place of the equivalency of Chachma and the illumination and the unity of Chachma, to go down into the concealment of being Mamshech Chasadim, which is a Ratzon Hashpia, which is a Ratzon to give and to be Lishma and to do things the right way and to be a Yirish Shemayim, and to have Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem and Midos Tovas and all of the pratim and the prate of the pratim in the Torah that's revealed to us in this world itself. All of that is ultimately so that we can go back up to Chachma Stima and reveal even more than that. And that's what Rabbi Shimon is going to leave us here with. Chadi Rabbi Shimon v'Amar. Rabbi Shimon laughed and he smiled and he said, Hashem Shamati Shemecha Yeresi. Hashem, I have heard your voice and I was afraid, as Habakkuk says. Hatam Yeyus Have Lemehave Dachil. By Habakkuk, it was appropriate for him, prior to his revelation of secrets, it was appropriate for him to be afraid, because his midah was fear, his midah was chachma. But by us, the matter is dependent on love, the matter is dependent on connectivity, the matter is dependent on trust, on the willingness to descend down levels. As it's written, the secret of after the greatest unity in the world, after Yichud Ilah and Yichud Tata, a person goes down into the Ahafta Es Hashem Lekecha. We go down into the territory of Avodah, of Yigia, of Bechira, of all of the differential iterations of self within concealment. But nevertheless, that descent is only to reveal the deep love and connectivity that HaKodesh Baruch Hu has for you, which enables us to go down. And then our love is going to be reflected in the love that HaKodesh Baruch Hu has from us, which is the secret of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love for Klal Yisrael. Chadi Rabbi Shimon smiles. V'zeh ki lefi ma shema'orim me'lamala kach tzarech le'his'oyer lahachzik hatikun hanetakein ki al kein me'irmoso. It's not enough to awaken the tikkun from above, as we just saw in the positioning of the Chavraya, but rather we have to awaken the desire to be mamshich the tikkun, to strengthen the tikkun, to ensure that the tikkun continues to be rectified, and that those words that were uttered by Rashbi don't descend into concealment, but rather we're the ones who are awakening to the noise. We're the ones who are receiving the Baskal from Har Sinai. Ki al kain, Ki al kain me'irino, so we have to awaken it. We have to be awake with it. The secrets are revealed. We have to live with them. It's not a question about revealing the secrets. The secrets are already revealed. They're saturating the entirety of existence ever since Rabbi Shimon came into the Metzias, ever since Moshe Rabbeinu was in Metzias. The only question is, are we able to be mezachich ourselves, to be megalazain on the Soda Satorah, so that we can live with them, so that we can draw down and understand what it is that we're doing in this world and see ourselves with eyes of significance, and to see everything from the perspective of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite light. And so we have to strengthen it. V'hine Chabakuk hu mitzad ha'gevurus. Chabakuk is mitzad ha'gevura. It's the gematria of gevura. It's a neshama that's a nekeva. It's rooted in the neshama of Yitzchak. That's why it's Heimir al Achas, which is the secret of Emunah, which is the secret of Malchus. But Chabakuk comes from the side of Gevura, comes from the loftiest place of Chachma, where it's clear that there is a distinction of levels. And what was revealed to Chabakuk was the secret that emerges by way of the yichud that takes place with the awakening of Gvuros. Like we just said, there's many, many paths to awakening, and the Chabakuk's path to awakening was the path of Gvuros. But that was then, and this is now. And that was his responsibility. He had to strengthen himself with that zivug, b'derech yira and b'derech gevura. But because it was awoken from the potency and intensity of gevura, so it was still stuck in the place of yira. It was still stuck in that perspective of the fundamental distance between chachma and malchus and the fear of entering into the lower levels. It's not that he was wrong. That was appropriate for him to be afraid there, because that was what he needed to be doing. But ultimately, the tachlis of what Rashbi wanted to be Megala is the hamshacha of the chasadim, to draw the lights of chesed from within chachma, so that those lights can be drawn down and they can be mushba, and that a person feels that they can take part in them, and they can experience the feelings of goodness and chasadim in their lives. Shehem hayu min chasadim, because they come from the 10 chasadim of chachma and bina, like we said earlier on. K'mavur kfar. V'hem gam ken yachziku b'derech ha'ahava. And for that reason, they strengthen themselves by way of ahava. They strengthen themselves in the path of ahava, which is the willingness to descend downwards, like we said. The willingness to draw down the light of Gan Eden, not just to have the lights of Bina mashpia down to Malchus, but to have Bina go into Zer Anpin, and to have Zer Anpin reveal itself within Malchus, because then we come to reveal that Zer Anpin is really rooted in Atika Stima'a. This is what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had to do right now. Now it was time to engage in love. And this love is a double love. This love goes from above to below and below to above. It's a love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has from us, and it comes down to us, and then it's a love that we receive, and we send it back up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just as the Hamshacha b'derech Ahava is to draw the lights down from Chochmah and Bina into Zer Anpin, not just to stay in Zer Anpin, but so that Zer Anpin could go down into Malchus, and then Malchus could be Oile back into the Pnimius of Bina, back into the Pnimius of Chochmah, all the way back up to the light of Keser, to reveal the singular truth, which is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is above and below at the very same time, and Leis Aser Paniminei, and Kula Kaima Kilo Chashiva and Lo Chashiva, and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Aniva Ayin Bevasachas, and the Heilige lights of Keser and Reish Loas Yada. That's the entire tachlis of the Ahava. It's not just to draw the Ahava down from above to below, but to receive the Ahava that comes down from above to below, and then to send it back up above, so that there can be a redoubling and a revelation of a deeper light. The secret is ki ha'ava, hi redifa, sama'oiris, zeh achar zeh. What is love other than the chasing of the lights one after the other? The light of above chases the light below, and the light below chases after the light above. And within that redifu, the machshava, the mid of habasre that we spoke about by David Malcolm Mashiach, the achte v'chesed yudefuni kol yimei chaya, that a person has to uncover the secret of the redifa of ahava. lehiskasher, to connect, lehistavik, biyichud gamor, so that there can be a fundamental bond. When we explain this elsewhere, and it's not the place to explain it. The ahava zois atzma, what is this love? Soifa magia el Yisrael. In the end of the day, the ahava that HaKodesh Baruch Hu has for creation, the desire for HaKodesh Baruch Hu to reveal his levels below, so that they can descend down into concealment, to reveal that concealment is also the deepest place where light is going to be invigorated with newfound strength. That light is going to be revealed most deeply and most intensely within the greatness of Nishmas Yisrael. This is our greatness, that we're the guardians of that love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends down. And this is why the Torah is given in Ahava, the Torah of the Pratim, the Torah of the details. It's given by Ahava because we know that that's the love that's coming down from above to below, so that we can then elevate the love back from below, back up above. That's why there's such a fundamental bond between Nishmas Yisrael and that which is taking place above in this transcendent worlds, and that in truth we are the purpose of the transcendent worlds, and it's the yichud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Torah, and Nishmas Yisrael. It's all about the drawing down of the tikkunim into particularity, which is the derech of ahava, to trust the process, to have a deep bond of love and confidence that even when I don't see the whole and I feel that I'm in the part, I can still maintain the ideality of the whole. These are the bonds of lights, so that we can draw down the rectifications from above down into our very essence and our souls. The sod kol zeh ha'ahava hazos, and the secret of this love, that by way of our awakening, we take the Nahi and we send it all the way back up to Chabad, and then Chabad comes down all the way to the Nahi, that we awaken the descent from above to below, so that we can awaken the elevation from below to above. This is the secret of the Ahavta es Hashem, that we love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're willing to descend down into the particularities of the derech of Ahava, of the Chasadim HaMegulim, and that is what awakens Ahavti Eschem Amar Hashem, that I love you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, meaning a love that's Lamal Mitavadas, a love that Halo Aches of Le'akov, aren't we the same ultimately? Nevertheless, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. The hidden secret of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Bechir of Klal Yisrael is our willingness to descend down into the derech of Ahava. L'chein Ro'i Lehischazik Bazeh. We have to strengthen ourselves with this. It's kedai for us to strengthen ourselves. L'hachzik ha'ahava zos b'chol chelka, in order to ensure that these bonds and unity of love between us and Hashem and us is fundamentally awoken at any moment that we can. And this is what Rashbi and his Chaverov were trying to do. And that's why he awoke in these psukim in order to awaken this doubled form of love, the love of Bnei Yisrael to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Bnei Yisrael, specifically by way of awakening these psukim. For the Ramchal, there was always a benefit for all of the tzaddikim to go back into Torah Shebachsav, to go back in from the feelings that we need to feel, from all of the experiences, to bring it back into Torah Shebachsav and to see the Chaf Dalet Kishutin, the 24 books of Tanakh that hold within themselves the secrets and these almost potent formulas that convey the ontological potency of what we're trying to grasp. That's the secret of the Psukei Torah, which is why for the Ramchal we see psukim of Kivoy and Drisha for Kadosh Baruch Hu, and psukim of Yir and Ava, that's saying the pasuk itself is mesugel to awaken these processes within us. Be'ezras Hashem.